This is a very realistic story. After watching it left me feeling restless for a long time. This subway maintenance worker is conducting routine inspections, suddenly discovered cracks on the wall, and a large amount of water has already seeped out. He was acutely aware of the seriousness of the matter. Based on one's own responsibilities, he quickly reported the situation to the subway administrator, but the administrator believes that, just got off the track last night, it's normal to have some water. But the old man said, the water was filled with a muddy smell of river water. This is obviously not caused by the rain, and suggests that he go to check and report for maintenance. But the administrator said, then he arrogantly invited him out, until the crack on the wall continued to expand the next day, and the morning rush hour subway station is already crowded with people. As Metro 42 slowly starts, people who didn't squeeze into the subway are still complaining in their hearts, and in the crowded carriage people are still joking with each other, but they were unaware that they were heading towards the end of life. In a few minutes, the subway driver noticed an abnormality in front of the tunnel, and there are also obvious watermarks. He opened his eyes wide. I hope it's just my own dizziness. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden landslide ahead. A large amount of river water rushed into the tunnel in an instant. Seeing this scene, the driver decisively applied the emergency brake, instantaneous sparks splashing on wheels, and accompanied by the roar of the brake pads. Huge inertia, causing thousands of passengers in 18 carriages to lose control, and fly towards the dry in an instant. In a few minutes, Lao She woke up and came over. He struggled to break free. A mountain of people piled together by inertia. But the carriage was already unbearable. Corpses and desperate cries of people everywhere. The entire subway train instantly turned into a human purgatory, and the daughter he has been holding, but there's only one piece of clothing left. He panicked in an instant. Help up the injured passenger on the side, while searching for one's own daughter. Finally, after a search, he found his daughter stuck under the seat. At this moment, his mood is extremely complex. I don't have the courage to touch my daughter at all. Dare to softly call out my daughter's name. Fortunately, when my daughter heard the shouting, she started to move. Lao She carefully rescued his daughter, after careful inspection, discovering that my daughter is not a big deal. That's how he calmed down. Meanwhile, passengers from other carriages jumped out of the carriage, and began to flee for their lives. The scene was chaotic, it's unbearable to see, and the administrator is still desperately calling Subway 42. It wasn't that he discovered a collapse in the tunnel, but because Subway 42 had been stagnant, which resulted in the 17th subway being blocked in the tunnel behind it. But no matter how he calls, I haven't received any response. Just when he felt strange, another person discovered, all 3 drainage pumps are running at full load. The administrator realized that the big deal was not going well, and immediately asked the 17th subway, which is stuck halfway, to quickly reverse. Meanwhile, the driver also discovered anomalies in the tunnel, so I quickly followed the co-pilot to the rear of the car, start the subway and drive in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, thousands of passengers are desperately fleeing inside the tunnel. Someone is pushing and shoving each other. Someone slipped and fell, but no one realized that the short circuit was only a few centimeters away. The electric shock administrator is also worried that the situation will escalate again, and immediately notify the control room. As soon as the 17th subway enters the station, turn off the power immediately, and the flood is no longer on track. If the power is not turned off in a timely manner, the current will flow into the water along the 3rd rail, and the people in the water inside the tunnel will be affected by telecommunications. Look at the distance between the 17th subway and the platform. 20 meters left. Some people have already left the water source, but more people are still running in the water. Just then, the subway has left the 3rd track and entered the station. Passengers on the 17th subway escaped a disaster. People in the controllable room are slow to react. Did not press the switch in a timely manner. The current flows into the water along the 3rd rail, causing hundreds of passengers to be electrocuted instantly. The administrator's biggest concern is still that something has happened, due to his negligence and arrogance, causing irreparable and serious consequences. However, the disaster did not come to an end, but it's just beginning. Here, Lao She and his daughter did not leave the carriage, but waiting for rescue inside the carriage. But he has a subtle relationship with another person, Lao Wan. Let's take a look here. I'll talk about it later. Seeing rescue far away, they can only save themselves if they want to escape from the tunnel. Lao Wan throws a dog off the rail. Don't get me wrong, everyone. She's doing this is also true. No way, surviving the once-in-a-century subway flooding accident, it's already a fortunate thing in misfortune. After confirming that there is no electricity in the water, how many people escaped from the carriage, formed an escape team. Meanwhile, there are 2 survivors in the other carriage, but the girl's owner suddenly has asthma, and his bag was stuck somewhere I don't know, just as he was about to suffocate. Fortunately, the unfamiliar handsome helped him find it in a timely manner. Ziome was able to regain her life again. Subsequently, the 2 of them walked carefully along the tunnel together. Suddenly a carriage tilts, blocked the 2 people. Ziome has a petite figure, climb up in time, but Ziosai couldn't break free. Ziome tried her best to lift him out, but multiple attempts were unsuccessful. The current situation is critical. Xia Shuai asked him to leave first, but in the face of one's own savior, Ziome refused to abandon him. Determined to rescue Xiao Shuai, come and see you at night for a war. You see, final, with the efforts of both of them, Ziosai was successfully rescued. 2 people smile at each other, although they met by chance, but because of this disaster, sparks love. Here, the staff in the subway station are still diligently evacuating the crowd, but there are always some people who think they are superior. No reason given, persist in not leaving. Until the survivors stumbled and escaped from the tunnel. Only then did everyone know that there was a landslide and water seepage accident inside the tunnel. These people are pouring out like crazy again, which led to the stampede accident again. Subsequently, the authorities have imposed an emergency closure on the subway. Meanwhile, Moscow officials held an emergency meeting. They discovered a more serious disaster. The collapse of the subway tunnel was caused by the backflow of river water. If it cannot be dealt with in a timely manner, it could be completely washed away by the river water. At that time, the strong water flow can fill the entire subway tunnel of the city in just a few minutes, and most cities will also face a land subsidence crisis. The only way is to close the tunnel that collapsed, stop floods. But it must be confirmed that there are no living people in the tunnel before proceeding. Subsequently, a search and rescue team was dispatched to search for the accident site. Here, the water level in the tunnel is already below knee level. Lao Xie and Lao Wang are still trying to escape the tunnel with everyone. Xiao Shuai and the two of them also walked together. Unexpectedly, a falling stone from another party hit the connector of the carriage, causing the carriage to fall off. After sliding for a moment, Lao Wang and his team heard movement coming from behind. But when they turned their heads and looked, momentary stupidity, the carriage was pushing a huge wave, coming towards them quickly. At a critical moment, everyone hid in the tree well of the tunnel, just escaped a disaster. But the fat man's slow movement was directly run over. Later, Lao Wang and his team found a vent in the tree well. Everyone cheered with joy. Lao Xie suddenly realized that Lao Wang was holding his daughter, and snatched it over with one hand. The scene was instantly filled with the smell of gunpowder. As the smoke of gunpowder dissipates, Lao Xie took out his phone, and prepared to call for help. But the phone still doesn't have a signal. Want to survive? They must dismantle the iron fence. But at this moment, the tunnel collapses again. A large amount of river water surged in, and the water level in the tree well is also gradually increasing. At a critical moment, 3 men working together grab the iron fence and work hard together, although they succeeded. But the phone still doesn't have a signal. At this point, the water level has already reached the waist, and all around the tree well are smooth walls. They can't climb up again. As the water level rises, a few people floated around an oil bucket. Wife takes out her phone again. Finally, there's a weak signal. He quickly dialed his wife's phone number. The wife, who was anxiously reviewing the list of survivors, received a call. I learned that both my husband and children are safe and sound. He breathed a sigh of relief, but the surrounding environment is noisy, plus the signal is not good. When the wife inquired about the specific location, just heard the words vertical shaft, and the old bucket on Lao Wang's side suddenly flipped over. My phone also fell into the water. Wife, based on information from the shaft, immediately seek help from the police. Meanwhile, the detached carriage cannot withstand the pressure of water. Be suddenly swept away. The water level in the shaft also rapidly decreased, and unfortunately, 2 search and rescue personnel were washed away by the river water. Fortunately, they caught the cable on the side in time, just escaped a disaster. Then I received a message to evacuate them. Prepare to block the tunnel in 10 minutes, flush into liquid nitrogen. After the search and rescue personnel, the other side arrived at the tree well. I didn't see any survivors. They found that everything around them had been flooded. Even someone may have drowned. And after Lao Wang and others were washed back into the tunnel, arriving at an abandoned platform. At this point, they are already exhausted. Collapsed to the ground, they seem to have a premonition of their future fate. But Lao Xie needs to settle accounts with Lao Wang before he dies. Originally, Lao Wang was the wife of Lao Xie, the neighboring Lao Wang. Make up with him now. Lao Xie has been suppressing the anger in his heart for the sake of the child. Unexpectedly, the prank of fate led the two to experience life and death together. Just as Lao Xie was about to drown Lao Wang, Xiaomei let out a roar, stopped Lao Xie. Meanwhile, the sound was also heard by the rescue workers being evacuated, just as a few people were preparing to accept their lives. Behind them, a light of life shines on them with an angelic smile. Search and rescue personnel. But at this moment, the bottom of the Moscow River suddenly began to collapse on a large scale. The river surged into the tunnel like a fierce beast. They won't have a chance to escape again. Just to keep most of Moscow underground, rescue personnel can only urgently seek instructions from their superiors. Close tunnel. Just when everyone thinks they can't survive, a hand and axe protruded from the sewer. After being discovered, they were rescued one by one. When Lao Zai's wife was heartbroken and preparing to leave, suddenly, I heard a sound from Mom. After she turned around, charged towards the daughter with an incredulous expression. Xiao Shuai and Xiao Miai, who have regained their rebirth, have also tied the knot, walking together, and Lao Xie and Lao Wang looked at their wives at the same time. The scene was once awkward. Both men seemed to be waiting for his decision. Subsequently, Lao Xie leads his daughter alone, and the wife also made a choice, silently following, staying. Lao Wang secretly hurts himself alone. After this disaster, the wife seems to understand the importance of marriage. Lao Xie also generously chose to forgive. This Lethal Subway is a Russian film released in 2013, although it's not a real event that changed. But the plot is extremely realistic. After watching it, it's even more heartbreaking. If everyone can fulfill their duties, even in the face of natural disasters, it can also avoid unnecessary casualties and losses.